make good decisions, have fun, but just think about before you do something, make sure it's a good decision.
Number one, go to class every day.
Be you, be a leader, and succeed in everything you do.
2, sit in the front row.
Just have a great education and a good time here while you're here. Enjoy life.
Stay motivated, stay positive, and stay focused.
Study hard, go to class, no drinking, no drugs.
3, introduce yourself to every teacher.
Stay out of trouble, don't get caught.
Have fun here.
Stay safe, have fun, study hard, make parents proud.
Go to school, go to class, wake up early, study.
4, go to every club you can get yourself involved with.
Study hard and don't waste my money.
Be kind and loving and enjoy.
Make the most of it. It's only going to be 4 years and then you're off to life.
Just go for it and go after your dreams, I guess, huh?
Make sure you go to lots of football games.
Okay, Ma.
Get out there and chase those dreams and make them come true. Find a balance, have fun, make new friends, have new experiences.
Just stay focused and keep your eyes on the prize.
Study hard, be smart, be careful. And I told him text me every night.
Have fun, stay out of trouble, and check in.
Remember your morals, everything your parents taught you. This is what you're going to put to the test now when you're on your own, making those wise decisions, not following the crowd.
And I always tell my son, you know right from wrong, so do the right thing.
Meet a lot of new people and just relax this weekend because it all starts on Monday.
I'm very proud of him for being here, and I wish him the best of luck.
That's awesome, my baby. It's going to be great.
Yes.
That's a hard act to follow, isn't it? Were those parents great? Yeah. How many people helped with the move-in day? Quite a few? Thank you. Yeah, thank everybody that got us to that move-in day. Let me introduce you to some folks up here in the panel. Vice President Al Phillips, Finance and Administration. Eric Weldy, Vice President for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management. Danny Rollins, who runs admissions for us. And Executive Vice President and Provost Lisa Freeman. And I'm Doug Baker, President. So we wanted to join you today, and I'm going to get away from that feedback. And each one of us is going to talk just a little bit about our areas, but we want to spend most of our time answering questions. And so the reason this panel's put together is this summer we held a series of about 20 roundtable discussions with department chairs and supervisors around the university, and they gave us feedback on things they wanted to hear about. And so budget and enrollment and things like that were at the top of the list. So we said, let's put together a panel and answer your questions. And you can ask anything outside of that too, but we thought having this cast here would be helpful for a bulk of the questions. So first I want to say thank you for the startup and everybody that got us to that startup. I thought it was an amazing day. Thanks to all the recruiters that got the students recruited here in marketing and communications. Thanks to, I see Abby out here who did our new orientation this year. We went to a two-day orientation where we had oh God, you know that's probably about right. About the junior year, you're starting to get the hang of it. And part of that two-day orientation, we did bus tours of the community. That was a first, wasn't it? And we had dignitaries from the community doing the bus tours. So I see Mayor Ray back here. And Anne Marie Gora, who's the city manager, is also back here. And they had, I saw them get in a fight over who gave the best bus tour. But they've told me it was an amazingly rewarding experience and that the moms and dads were very, very appreciative. And I know some of them said, can we buy a house here? This is a cool place. I learned stuff from these tours too that I didn't know about the town. So I think that was a great step and really got the community and the university and the moms and dads hooked up together. Thanks to the grounds and buildings folks, you know, curb appeal for this university has a big impact on what students think of the place. So thank you. And all the staff at the university and the scholarship office and the faculty and the staff and everybody that worked with the moms and dads that got us to that startup day. We had 1,400 people help move us in that day, and 100 from the community, including the mayor, Anne Marie. And they put Anne Marie on a TV station from Rockford, and it was like 100 degrees, and she'd been carrying boxes all day, and I'm sure she felt like she didn't look and feel her very best to be on Rockford TV, but she was a trooper, so thank you for doing that. So I'm grateful, I'm thankful, and I think it was a great start to the semester, and you can feel the vibrancy in our student body right now. They're back, they're excited. It's good to have them back, isn't it? You know, we've got important work to do on our recruitment and retention. Enrollment is critical to us. It's our mission. It's why we're here. The students help us do the teaching and learning activities that are core to what we're about. And luckily, they also help pay some of the bills around here, too. So increasing our enrollment is critical, not only for our mission, but for our bottom line at the university. And we've worked really hard on that the last couple of years. A year and a half ago, we took on retention. We knew it's not where it needed to be. And in that first year, we got a 5% increase in retention. The 10th day numbers, our census day is going to come out. Well, 10th day is this Friday, and so we'll know early next week after we run the numbers. But it looks like our retention is going to be at least as good, maybe up a little bit from last year. So that's good news, and that's going to help our enrollment, and that's going to help us fulfill our mission. So thank you for everybody that's been working on that. And our recruitment activities have been under transformation. So today, Danny's going to talk about recruitment activities. Eric's going to talk about some of the transformative things they're doing more broadly in student affairs, enrollment management, set the context for us. Al's going to talk about our budget situation, where we are. And Lisa is going to talk about program prioritization. So we need to think about the revenue side, and I'll talk a little bit about the state and where we are with that. Our tuition and fees, our recruitment activities, retention activities, and then Lisa will talk about program prioritization. So that's going to address some of our key issues. So, state budget. The drama goes on in Springfield. The presidents and chancellors of the universities meet on a weekly basis. Yesterday, President Colleen from the University of Illinois was here to visit with me about what they're doing and trying to coordinate our activities, and we'll be visiting Springfield shortly. It seems like we're kind of stuck right now in this epic battle between the legislature and the governor trying to figure out a common ground. And at some point, we're going to have higher taxes and spending cuts. It's just, where's the line? What's the equilibrium level? And we're doing that battle right now. So we will get through that, and we're going to lend our voices to it. Earlier today, I met with leaders from our student body, our staff senates, and our faculty senate to talk about what we can collectively come to do to share our voice with our legislators and the governor. I think that's important for all the schools in the state, whatever your opinion is, one way or the other, to share that voice. So we'll be working on that. You know, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through the struggles there. We're turning our enrollment around. It's going to take a little bit to do that, but I see very positive trends already. And I like our position. We're the only public research university in northern Illinois outside of the city of Chicago. And there's about 9 million people between us and downtown Chicago. That's pretty fertile ground, with lots of good students and over 140,000 alumni living in that area. We have a lot of assets, and we can build on those, and we are going to move forward. We also have 26 community colleges in our region of northern Illinois, great partners, and ones that we are building stronger relationships every day. You may have heard of our announcement last Monday, I guess, with Rockford College. We're going to offer 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's degree on their campus. And the reason is the industry came together with Rock Valley College and NIU to identify engineering needs there and to fulfill the community needs for place-bound students that couldn't come here. Well, that got all kinds of support. For example, the Woodward Corporation said that they would give money to remodel facilities at Rock Valley to make that happen. So you're seeing that triangle offense of our faculty and students and the outside world coming together to make that strength and move us forward. So we're going to see enrollments coming from there and meeting those community needs. And another thing that I'm really excited about in terms of positioning us is that we're in a very diverse part of the country and a very diverse part of the state. That's a huge asset. 50% of the high school graduates, a little over 50%, were students of color this year in Illinois. That reflects where America's going, and that's a real asset for us. We have a welcoming community, and we can build on that and really make it one of our key attributes. So my thanks for everybody that are working on making this a welcoming place and a place where we can learn from each other. This summer, I mentioned we had these meetings with chairs and supervisors, and part of the feedback we got from them was that we really need to kind of lay out critical issues and talk to you in various formats. So this panel is one manner. We've gone to a podcast. We've changed the Baker Report. We're going to have other vice presidents and other key people communicating with you, but also asking all these people to come meet with you face to face when it's appropriate. So we're making those adjustments. So with the budget, we're going to streamline our budget. We've got to do that. We know that there's been a reduction in enrollment over the last 7 or 8 years. We know that our state funding is, believe it or not, down by 50% in inflation-adjusted dollars over the last 12 years. That's hard to believe, isn't it? A 50% reduction in state support over 12 years in inflation-adjusted dollars. So those are things we need to respond to. We can't have the same budget structure and the same processes and continue on. So we want to go through a thoughtful process, and Lisa will talk about that relative to program prioritization. Al will talk about it in terms of re-engineering, and we just need to think about streamlining at all levels. In my office, since I've gotten here, I've reduced the payroll in the senior leadership group by over $500,000. So that's probably not a fact that's widely known, but from the salaries the year before I started to today, we're down over $500,000 in senior level salaries. We've reduced vice presidential positions and streamlined and combined activities. Lisa's done the same in her area, down by $300,000 earlier last year, that then gave her some space to make some critical hires, but she still has reduced her overall spending. So my hat off to her. So why don't we get on with these other folks? We're going to get through this. You're going to get paid. That's probably an important thing to say. Yay. You go ahead and applaud. That's good. And the reason you're going to get paid is we've been thinking hard about this. We've been thinking hard about it since I got here, about putting a new budget and budget system in place, understanding where our money is in the various pockets, and putting together a budget. And I'm going to ask Vice President Phillips to talk to us a little bit about where we are with all that. Al?
All right. I can speak. There we go. There we go. I'm good. I'm good. As President Baker said, we have some financial challenges. You might have heard Illinois is having some financial struggles. It's been an interesting summer. Normally by this time, we would have had our state appropriation typically the end of May, the first week of June. We currently still have no appropriation and don't really know when we're going to receive our state appropriation. Now, that in and of itself sounds really dire, but what most people understand is the state provides about 20% of our overall budget. So, and because the state is behind in payments to the college universities, the state still owes us another $8 million from last year. So normally, even if we had a budget, we probably wouldn't start receiving any of the funding for the next year till next month or so. And so we still have revenue coming in, and we're looking at this as a bridging year. We will do what we have to do to get through the year. Our hope is that there will be some form of agreement in Springfield sooner rather than later. And they are concerned. There are a lot of people concerned about it as well. I've been down to Springfield in the last couple of months, testified before the Senate Appropriations Committee. A week ago, I testified before the Lieutenant Governor's Commission on Unfunded Mandates. And so there are people looking at this. They just have not yet been able to come to an agreement. But for today, we're okay. And moving forward, we continue to assess this situation on a daily basis. And so That's what's going on in Springfield. That's going on with the state budget. We do have funds to continue on, and we will do so. And we will make the difficult decisions when we're in a position where we have to. So, but let me very briefly talk about how we got here and kind of where we are. Next chart. This chart is an illustration of back in 2002 was the high water mark for higher education spending. Since that time, funding for higher education in the state of Illinois has declined about 33% or over $1 billion. State funding for higher education runs about $2 billion a year. It used to be closer to $3 billion. And so we're down about 30% from where we were. At the same time, costs have continued to increase. And so what you see on this chart is back in 2002, 70% of the cost of college education was funded by the state. Now it's only about 30%, and a large portion of the difference is being made up through financial aid. And as a result, there's more and more need and greater requirements for financial aid, Pell funding, MAP funding, et cetera. Next chart, please. This is the chart that the president referred to. If you look on the far left, what you see is that back in 2002, funding for NIU was roughly $180 million from the state. Or let me say, no, I'm adding them together. I'm looking at the wrong line. GRF funding was about 118. There we go. My eyes are getting old from looking at all those numbers since I've been here. 118 million down to about 63 million, which in fact is, when you factor in inflation, is a reduction in funding from the state of about 50%. During that time, to help make up the difference, income fund and largely tuition and fees increased, but that still did not increase enough to make up the difference. And we're now to a point where we can't continue to raise fees and tuition because now we're becoming uncompetitive, largely with the states that surround Illinois and the private institutions. So we're holding the line on costs. We actually, I think, reduced tuition and fees slightly for this year. We're holding them steady for FY16, and we will continue to take a look at that. And we're looking at finding other ways where we can reduce costs and save funding. Next chart. The other thing that's not helping us, though, is enrollment. We're down about 20% in enrollment from just a very few years ago. Enrollment used to be about 25,000. Now it's down to around 20,000. At the current tuition and fee rates, if we were back up to 25,000, that would probably be the equivalent of about another $50 million in revenue. And so on the one side, we have to reduce costs, but on the other side, we have to take a look at ways of enhancing our revenue. Next chart. Now, as we try to do this, as I said, I went and talked to the Lieutenant Governor's Commission on Funded Mandate, and I have to thank Michelle Danza and Laura Sala. One of the things that I think we're all quite familiar with is our procurement process. For what it's worth, when I worked in Springfield, I was at the Board of Higher Ed. It wasn't any easier for us there, and would take us months to do something that you would think you would do in a couple weeks. So we sat down and we tried to figure out the process. We think we have a pretty good handle on it, and to initiate a contract, there are 74 steps so far. So these are some of the challenges as we take a look at how we do business and what we do and how can we make things work better, more efficiently. And in this case, I'll talk about it a little more, but in this case, one of the ways we're going to help fix this is we're going to create a contracting office so everything doesn't have to go through the process. So everything doesn't... So it doesn't take on the average 18 weeks to do a contract. And from my standpoint, so that, and I see these every day and I get a stack of about a foot high of all the contracts and everything I have to go through every day, so I don't end up signing contracts for booths at Corn Fest that cost the university $200. So a lot of good people working very hard to figure out how to get us through this to make a difference. Next chart. And so the first thing we have to do is we have to take a look at reducing our spending. I went back and checked. Aside from payroll, which is clearly the biggest expense, for instance, in products, services, contracts, equipment, we spend about $110 million a year. $110 million. If we cut that by 10%, that's a $10 million savings. I think we can probably do that. And so we're looking at that, and we've had this fall, we've taken a look at the budget and taken a really hard look at the budget. When I talked about the state revenue, worst case, our revenue from the state could be down about $30 million. That's one of the proposals on the table. That was the governor's recommendation. That's quite a bit of money. So we're looking for savings. We're looking for areas where we can save costs. And we went through a rather rigorous budget review this fall. Very difficult discussions. I do want to thank all the people who were involved in that, the budget officers, the deans, the chairs, a lot of tough discussions. But we made reductions. We made reductions in key areas. We made tough decisions. That's helping us get where we need to be. One of the other things we're trying to do is increase efficiencies. It gets back to the chart that I just showed. We don't have to go through 74 steps to get something that we need for the university. In my office, we are now starting to do process reengineering. And so we're starting to take a look at all our processes, this being one, as to, okay, when's the last time this was looked at? If we could start over and with a clean sheet of paper and design this process the way we would want it to work, what would it look like? Okay, now let's go from where we are and migrate that to where we need to be. So we're going to look throughout campus on the administrative side, on the academic side, and pick issues and things where we can do them better to save costs, to make things work more efficiently, to save resources, to eliminate frustration as we work through our difficult challenges. The next one's sustainable budget. One of the things that is a challenge is that we do budgets on a one-year budget timeline. I'm going to push that out 5 years. We have leases that go out 4 years. We have contracts that go out years. We have scholarships that go out years, but we don't even have any place to put them in the budget. We do planning, but since we don't have budgets that go out, it's tough to tie the plans to funding. And if they're not funded, it doesn't happen. So we're going to push budget out 5 years so we can get out ahead of things, so we can identify and make assumptions and put things in the budget that we want to protect. It's one thing to make a decision 3 months out. It's a whole other thing to make a decision 3 years out. So we're going to push our budgets out so that we can provide more consistency, continuity, predictability, and make it easier to make tough and difficult decisions. And lastly, increase revenue. As a result of all the difficult budget discussions, other discussions have started to take place about ways we can turn things around, ways we can raise revenue. Discussions are taking place that never happened in the past, which is exactly what needs to happen. So not only in the enrollment side, but there are good things taking place. There are a lot of really good people, all of you sitting out here, who certainly are interested in our success and are helping us to get there. So it'll be a tough year. We're all in this together. We will get through this. We will make tough budget decisions when we're in a position to do so. We're not there yet. We still have funds, and we are hopeful that our fine legislators in the state and the governor will sooner rather than later come together in some form of a compromise so that we can get on with the business of the university. Yeah. So thank you.
Thanks, Al. And we've worked closely with our board on these issues too. And last week we had board committee meetings, and Al presented this budget information to them. So I want to thank them for their partnership with us and recognize Mark Strauss, the chair of our board, who's here today. Mark, thanks for being here. Oh, okay, so Eric's made a lot of changes as he's come in as Vice President for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management the last 2 years. So, Eric, you want to give us a little bit of overview of what you've been up to?
Yes, happy to. Cue testing 1, 2. Enrollment management has looks quite different than it did 2 years ago when I first arrived. And so there have been significant changes made in our overall operations. And just to put things in a little bit of context, within the Division of Student Affairs and Enrollment Management, when I mention enrollment management, there are 4 units that make up the enrollment management side. Admissions, in which everyone is very familiar with, orientation and family connections, financial aid, as well as scholarships. And so I just wanted to make that clarification. The reason why there has been significant changes made has to do with various reasons. Obviously, number 1 has to do with our enrollment. And so I would like to talk a little bit about why certain changes or improvements were needed, as well as to talk about what has been done to better position us to recruit, to enroll and retain a talented student body. So looking at why changes or improvements were needed. When people talk about why our enrollment is down and why over the past 7, 8 or so years we've had a steady decline, there's a number of reasons why, but I will highlight 3 of those top reasons with you today. One is changing demographics. As many of you may know, the number of students who are graduating from high school and entering college has declined over the past several years. And so that's one major factor. Second factor is that Illinois is second among the states whose high school graduates go on to attend college out of state. I think the number is average about 16,000, I believe, net number.
33,000 leave the state a year, and we import 16 or 17,000, so we're the net second biggest in the country in terms of export.
Yes, and the third is intense competition. And I love this slide because this kind of really, if I had something that would motivate me every day, getting out of bed, this is it. Thousands of colleges and universities around the country recruit in Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. And so this gives you an indication of those universities, colleges and universities, that have admission offices in Chicago. And so you can just kind of look. So when we talk about competition, who's our competition? This is our competition right here. Now, that being said, what has been done to better position us to be more competitive? Because it's a very competitive market. One thing that I can tell you that I started doing when I first arrived is I really took a look and evaluated, assessed my staff in enrollment management. And one thing that I can say, one thing that really attracted me to NIU is that I felt like we had the talent and the resources to overcome any obstacle, whether it's an enrollment issue or any issue. And so what I did is I looked at the staff and really identified staff members who I felt had the talent and skill set to do the job that I felt needed to be done in order for us to move forward. And basically, I gave them that opportunity to prove that they could do it. And there's individuals that I see within the crowd that I could point out and say that this person was given an opportunity or a chance, and they have performed well. And so I really believe that we do have the talent and skill set here. There are certain positions where we may not have the talent or the skill set for various reasons. And that's when you go out and you hire someone to come in and do the job that you need done. And so that is something that I have done from the standpoint of enrollment management. Thirdly, we have made improvements with our business processes, as well as provided much needed training for staff to better equip them to do their jobs. It's very difficult for me to ask any staff member to do a tough job and not make sure that they're well equipped to do that job. And so, part of that responsibility, I would say, would need to fall on me if I don't make sure that my staff does not have what they need in order to do their job and to do it well. And that's things that we have been looking at over the past 2 years and been really implementing significant changes. Finally, we have made key changes throughout enrollment management in order to allow us to compete at a higher level. There are many examples that I can give you of changes that we've made programmatically and so forth, but I'll just share one with you. And it's one that the president mentioned, and I think it's one that we're all familiar with. We made the change of going from a one-day orientation to a two-day orientation. And so when I hired Abby Wolfman, and in fact, during her interview, these are some of the things that we talked about, different changes that we would have to make to move forward. And so the two-day orientation was one of those. There's a number of reasons why I believe strongly that it's important to do a two-day orientation. And when you look at our competitors, and I could name some of them that have been doing a two-day orientation for a long time, but here are some really good reasons that I felt that we needed this change. One, I believe that it gave us more time to showcase our campus and our resources. And it's really difficult to do that with a one-day or a half-day orientation. Secondly, I felt like we were able to give students and their families a deeper look into our campus community. What are our traditions? What are our values? And so we had ample time to share those. We were able to discuss important topics and issues in ways that we were not able to in the past. And so every campus has its issues and topics and that families and students want to learn more about, they want to have an understanding. And we had more than enough time to do that over a two-day period. Finally, students were able to see themselves at NIU by building a closer connection to our current students, faculty, and staff. What better way for students and families to see themselves as a part of this community than to spend time with members of our community, to spend a little bit more time with our faculty, with our advising deans, with our staff members, and with our current students. And so these are things that we were able to do. And I heard some wonderful stories over the summer of family members and students late at night after all of, because Abby and her team, they took them through the ringer. I tell you, they kept them busy. But late at night, ordering pizza, sitting around in the lounge areas, just laughing, and just great anticipation as it relates to the coming year. And so those were great things. And this really impacts retention. Because when someone's son or daughter calls them up and say after the first week, I want to come home, and the parents are like, listen, I was there on campus for 2 days. I know the resources that are available for you on campus. I know that the campus community as a whole is really dedicated to your success. So stay on campus, hang in there. And so this, I believe strongly, is a great indication of what we need to do and are doing in order to be more competitive. Finally, I would just like to wrap up my segment here to talk about really my vision for enrollment management. And so, I think I was asked this question when I first interviewed here, and so I've been talking a little bit more about that as we move forward, because I do think that while we're in this current situation, we will not always be in this situation. And I think that we will move forward. I do think that things will get better. But my overall vision for enrollment management is for us to become one of the top enrollment management operations in the nation and building a strong national reputation in all areas of enrollment management. I think there's a misconception in regards to what enrollment management is or is not. And so many times when you talk about enrollment management, people immediately think of admissions. But enrollment management is more than admissions. It's really more than the other areas that I mentioned. It's more than orientation and family connections. It's more than financial aid. It's more than scholarships. Recruiting and retaining students must be everyone's responsibility when it comes to enrollment management. We as individuals and as a university community must take ownership. I'll give you a wonderful example of how you can take ownership. One aspect of the orientation program was that faculty members actually gave many lectures during orientation, and it was a hit from the standpoint of students and families being able to sit in a room and listen and participate in a faculty lecture. And it doesn't get any better than that. But that's how those faculty members who participated, how they chose to take ownership. Others throughout campus have taken ownership by volunteering for open house, or the open houses that we have and other admission activities. Others have taken ownership by volunteering to make phone calls to prospective students. So whatever your comfort zone is from the standpoint of giving back or taking ownership, believe me, we have a job for you, okay? We're partners in all of this. And some final thoughts here. I would like to say that a major part of becoming one of the top enrollment management operations in the nation is building trust among the university community. And that's what really I've tried to do over the past couple of years, is help build trust within our university community. That I really feel that I may be the face, Danny may be the face from the standpoint of enrollment management, but really when you think about it, we're all the face of enrollment management here at the university. And finally, yes, please go ahead, give yourselves a hand. And finally, as we see the fruits of our labor, it is important that we learn how to tell our university success story. Nothing ticks me off more than to go to a conference and hear somebody tell about this wonderful program that they have at their university that they just started a year or two ago. And we've been doing it for 10 years, and no one has heard peep out of us. Okay, and so as we become more fruitful, as we increase our enrollment, I think that we need to tell our story, every aspect of our story. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Give it up for Eric. Yeah. So there are really important components all the way along that funnel, you know, from marketing and communication to get people interested in looking at us, to the admissions process, to the transition process that we were just talking about. Danny Rollins has come to us, 7, 8 months ago now, Danny? 7 months from Reed College in Portland, Oregon, and before that she was at the University of Arizona, so a nice combination of public and private institutions. And you know, when you come in, you can take a fresh look, fresh eyes at our processes, and she's done exactly that, made a tremendous number of important changes already and more to come. So Danny, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So really, we've been doing a lot of things in admissions. We've made a lot of changes in a short amount of time. I have some staff here, and I would just, first of all, like for them to stand up and be recognized. I am the 6th director of admissions in as many years. And they're still here. So thank you. But the fact that they're still here after 6 directors in my first 7 months is testament to their talent and their patience. So thank you again. That lack of consistent leadership, again, being the 6th director of admissions in as many years, that contributed to quite a few problems for us, as you can imagine. And so one of the first things that we did was we really tried to focus on changing office culture and providing more support and more stability for the staff. We also need to make sure that the staff that are in these key positions that really are the face, and that they're going out to the high schools and the community colleges and the community-based organizations to speak on our behalf as a community, that they really have the access to the information and the type of ongoing training that they need. And so that's one of the first things that we put together. We also have reorganized the Office of Admissions, thank you, into these general focus areas here. Really, part of this reorganization was just to kind of shake things up a little bit and put things in an order that made sense and that was more organic to the process. And as part of this reorganization process, we really have been encouraging the admissions office to sort of bring forth their ideas and to communicate more authentically with one another and with senior leadership. And so I've dragged these guys into lots of meetings they hadn't been into before, because they really are the ones on the ground and in the trenches, and I think that we can all benefit from hearing from their stories. In terms of communications, I think that as an office we sort of forgot about the importance of the printed word for a while, and there was an over-reliance on email. We have a very robust system. We have Hobson's Connect, which is a CRM, which stands for a Constituent Relationship Management System. I did a whole presentation that was about an hour and a half long just on the changes we made in that system alone. But because it is such a robust system, you can send hundreds and hundreds of thousands of emails in literally about a minute and a half. And I think because we had such a robust system, we sort of had an over-reliance on that system alone and forgot about the fact that people like to have documents in their hands, especially first-generation students and the parents of first-generation students. They like to get printed materials, and they were getting them from a lot of other colleges, but maybe not from NIU. And so that's something that we're actively working on with university marketing to revamp our complete suite of publications and our communication plan, and then add some more printed publications for parents and students. Procedurally, we're really maximizing some of the capabilities of existing systems and really taking advantage of some new metrics and reporting. And so some of you on campus here might use OnBase. OnBase is our imaging and document processing system, and inherent to that system are some reporting mechanisms that could be really useful for us in trying to figure out how good our current procedures are and where we might need to tweak some procedures, but we had not been utilizing those reports. And so we'll be utilizing those reports moving forward into the next cycle. And so a couple of examples might be, how long it takes a student to move through the recruitment funnel, or how long it takes a student to receive their admissions decision letter, things like that. And I think the final thing I would just mention is that we are really turning our attention to customer service and trying to make a conscious effort to focus on customer service, not just training, but just that philosophy. And I know that some of us in higher education sort of bristle at that word customer when we talk about prospective and current students. But I think that it's a benefit to, if not think of that word, to think of that philosophy, that we really want to make sure that we understand that we are servant leaders to those students. And so that's the kind of spirit that we're trying to foster in the Office of Admissions through additional training. We've also just revamped our visitor surveys, and so we're going to be asking the students more targeted questions about what they hope to see when they're on campus and what they maybe didn't get to see, and how we can really make sure that they get that the next time they're with us. I would also say too that there's definitely no magic bullet, and this is going to take time, but I really think that if all of us sort of foster, again, that spirit of servant leadership to the students that are here and the students that we want to showcase our strengths to, I really think that you can't ever go wrong. And so increasing communication within the Office of Admissions, but also campus-wide, we want to hear from you. I tell people all the time, if you overhear something at the Jewel that you think is inconsequential, but it's about NIU, I want to know about it, because then that helps me go out into the community and have a more informed conversation and maybe to dispel some of those myths and to really talk more intelligently about what's going on out there in our community. So I would encourage all of you to give me and my staff that kind of feedback, and thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Danny and her team have really brought a lot of great ideas to action already, and I noticed this spring as we were watching our recruitment and retention numbers that when those things started kicking in, you could watch the curves, and there were points of inflection where they started going up, and that really struck me that what she and her team are doing are making a difference. We can change the shape of that curve, so I was really encouraged just in a few months to see some of those points of inflection and look forward to more. So Al talked to us about the state of the budget. Eric and Danny talked to us about the revenue side, and now we need to figure out how to allocate that money to the best purposes of the institution so we can fulfill our mission. And Lisa's been working and leading a project on program prioritization over the last year or so, and we're going to have to ask her about that a little bit. Lisa, you want to fill us in on where we are?
Absolutely, and if you don't mind, I'm going to stand so I can see slides, but also make sure that I can maintain contact with everybody here in the audience. We've heard a lot today about revenues and decreasing costs and doing spreadsheets and financial forecasting, and these are all really important things for us to do in the background, but that's not why anyone in this audience came here to work. We came here because we want to help the students and their parents that we saw in the opening video realize their dreams. We came here because we want to be the people standing at the front of the room engaged in the life of the mind, because we want to be the people who trimmed the flowers, who made sure the sidewalks were level, who carried the boxes in for the students. And in order for us to stay true to our mission, when we think about our 5-year budgets and where we're going to put the money, we have to have a mechanism for making sure that we align our resources with the things that really matter, that we actually don't have just accessible and affordable programs, but also high-quality programs. And in this context, when I say high-quality programs, I mean high-quality academic programs and high-quality administrative programs like grounds, like maintenance, like human resources. And so a way to do that is through program prioritization. We started a conversation about program prioritization last fall, just about a year ago, and our activity really ramped up over the spring. We started to have a campus conversation about why we want to prioritize programs to make sure that our resources are allocated according to our mission. And we established guiding principles. We said that every program will be evaluated. We said that we will teach out students if they're in academic programs that are being phased out. We said that we will honor all contracts and employment arrangements with the dedicated staff and faculty that are here, even if people wind up doing something that might be a little different than what they were doing before. In addition to that, we defined academic and administrative programs. There are over 200 academic programs and over 200 administrative programs. We developed the criteria that are important for us going forward with the evaluation, not just criteria that we read in a book or saw on a website, but criteria that are important to NIU, that align with NIU's particular mission. And then we had a campus-wide open nomination process for people to serve on the 2 task forces that will be charged with looking at all of our administrative and all of our academic programs. And we have about 21 people on each of those task forces. We completed all of that last spring. Over the summer, many of you were off campus. Many of you were here working. Nobody on campus was working harder than our data support team, who were really finalizing the program definitions, making sure that we had the information necessary for the people who will be writing narratives about their programs, and making sure that we had a system that was functional and that would be supportive of the program authors who will be writing those narratives and the task forces who will be evaluating them. So we're back in school here. This week, we're starting to train our task forces. We have an aggressive training schedule planned for the people who will be writing program narratives, the program authors. We will be making our IT platform pre-populated with data for programs available on September 28th. And then in mid-October, we're going to have a panel on campus with folks from other campuses who've been through this already. Faculty, program authors, program reviewers, not really a lot of administrators, maybe a couple, but people who were active in this process so that we can learn from their experience. And then the program narratives will be turned in December, and next spring, the task forces will start their important work. And so the 2 task forces, the one that looks at all the academic programs and the one that looks at all of the administrative programs, will be placing those programs into 5 groups of equal size. And we don't yet know how they will title those groups, but basically we expect the groups to fall out sort of like the bullets that you see. The task force doesn't have final authority. They will only be making recommendations to the senior leadership, recommendations to our shared governance process, which will still have all the steps that it normally has when we look at changing a program. But the recommendations will be, this program is a candidate for enhanced resources. This program should be continued as it is. This program should continue but with reduced resources, perhaps because there are efficiencies that can be realized. This program is really important, but it can be better than it is. It can be higher quality. It can be more efficient. It requires some transformation. Or this program is a candidate for elimination or phase out. We should invoke the mechanisms we always use on campus when we're thinking of eliminating a program. And that involves our shared governance process, our curricular change process, and our board of trustees for an academic program. After those quintiles are made available, the 5 groups of programs in these buckets, the Student Association will have a panel that reflects their views about what the work product of the 2 task forces are. And then, of course, we'll invite comments from the Faculty Senate, from the Operating Staff Council, from the Supportive and Professional Staff Council, from the Dean's Council, from the Cabinet, and from all of the other campus stakeholders and constituents, our alumni. And then all of that feedback will be used to start to inform our budget process, and it will start informing our FY17 budget. But as Vice President Phillips said, we're going to be doing budgets more on a multi-year basis. And so when we look at how we try to plan for things, changes that might occur over a 3 to 5 year basis, this will be something that informs that process. A lot of this will be about reallocating the resources that we currently have. Obviously, as we increase our enrollment, we'll have more resources coming in tuition dollars, and those will be available to be allocated according to these guidelines and with other important priorities of the university. But the other thing is that when we talk about candidates for enhanced resources, we can work with our philanthropic function, with our advancement division, to say, hey, something that came out of program prioritization looks really good or really cool or really like something a donor would like to invest in. And so we can also use program prioritization to identify opportunities to bring new resources in, whether it's through the philanthropic process, donations, whether it's grant opportunities that are identified. So it's also an opportunity for innovation. This is a screenshot of our program prioritization website, and I'm going to ask Brad to take us to it live, because I know that not everybody in this room has been following program prioritization quite as closely as I have, or as Vice Provost Douglas, who's here with us, have, because we've been facilitating the process. You may have questions about what I've said. You may have questions about pieces that happened when you weren't paying attention. This website is a great place to come to see what's new and what has gone on before. So if you see under latest news and updates, we have links to the most important things that have happened. Most recently, we've published the questions that will underlie the criteria, the things that will actually be questions answered on the templates of the program narratives. If you go to training and scroll down, you can see that we have a number of workshops planned for program authors, for the people who will actually be the primary responsibility, have the primary responsibility for writing narratives about their programs, whether they're academic or administrative. We have face-to-face workshops planned, we have online training planned, and we also have mechanisms that will continue to unveil for people being able to get real-time help while they're writing their program narratives. We've been working very hard to try to provide everyone in the campus with support as we move forward. Brad, can you flip onto the FAQ section? I'm going to end here because I want actually everyone in the audience to have an opportunity to ask me and all of my colleagues up here questions. But I want to point out that we have answers to a lot of the common questions posted here. We also have a mechanism where you can submit a question. And if you submit a question that's very particular to your program, you'll get a personal answer. If you submit a question that we think many people have, and most of the time if one person has a question, probably others do, then we'll publish it as a frequently asked question. If you want someone from the program prioritization team to come and make a presentation in a venue where we haven't gotten yet, this is also a place where you can make that request. And I'm going to stop there and turn the microphone back to whoever's moderating the Q&A for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So these four have been working really hard, doing some really important stuff to move us forward. And as I mentioned when I started, all of you have been too. You got us to this first or now second week in really good shape. So thank you for all of that hard work. But I know you've got a lot of questions. While we went a little longer than we'd hoped to, we covered a lot of territory there. Let's have some questions. Let's open it up to questions and answers for anybody. And we've got a mic here and a mic there. I know some people are listening online or watching online. And so the microphones will be important so they can hear your questions. So who's first? Somebody get brave. Here we go.
I just had a question about why the program prioritization is divided into 5 equal quintiles and not based on the findings.
So those 5 categories that I showed you as generic are generally the findings that you can have about programs. And the reason that we have them roughly divided into 5 about equal groups is because it is really a best practice of a peer review process where you're looking at a lot of good to excellent programs and trying to allocate a limited resource pool strategically across those programs to force people to use the entire range. There are going to be programs that are good programs that may be candidates for transformation, because there are other programs that are more closely aligned with our mission or more critical to the university. And so if you look at how these types of competitions, grant reviews, trying to get people to think of the whole spectrum of possibilities and space programs across them is a good way to really get a feel for how you do resource allocation most strategically. I think it's really important to remember that there'll be peer review that's done using the criteria. There'll be an initial listing of the programs across rank order. The task forces will be grouping them into quintiles. There'll be a lot of discussion. And then that will be published for campus comment. It's still only a recommendation. And it's a recommendation that identifies to the people who look at the quintile rankings, everyone in this room, along with everyone sitting on the stage, what the task forces, who are made up of people who love this university, who want to see the university go forward in a sustainable future, what they thought were the best opportunities for growth, what they thought were the best opportunities for change, and what they thought were things that we might have been able to stop doing. And that will inform how we go forward. So I think if you don't have 5 about equal groups, you wind up with sort of a Lake Wobegon effect, and you've gone through a lot of time and effort that doesn't really provide new information to the people who have to make the decisions. And so that's why we're moving forward with about 5 equal quintiles.
Good social science question. Who's next? Mayor, could I ask you a question? See what you get for coming. Mayor, you and I have been trying to work to link the university and the community together for a couple years now. And I just want to first say thank you to you and the community for coming out and helping us with orientation this year. I know we got a lot out of it, and moms and dads got a lot out of it. What did the community learn from that?
I think we gained an appreciation for individuals new to our community, becoming more oriented to the assets that we have in the community. Seeing the Kishwaukee Community Hospital, seeing the different shopping venues that are available to their students, seeing the DeKalb High School, just visually seeing those assets, seeing the neighborhoods surrounding the university, The greater community, a number of the parents commented, do students participate in the community tour? It would be extremely helpful for their student to be able to see that larger community as well.
And as follow-up, do you think the tour leaders learned anything from the moms and dads about, or the students about their interests?
I think they did. Just seeing reactions to the different components of our larger community was a learning experience for us to gain an appreciation for those assets that we have in place.
Yeah, well, thanks for doing it. Really appreciate it. That was a big step for us.
President Baker, I got a question.
Okay.
Can I ask a question from over here? I had the good fortune of being able to visit with a lot of faculty and staff over the summer, like you did with those some of those communications meetings. And one of the things that was brought up during those meetings, and maybe Al can address this, a lot of people, you mentioned the processes, and there was some frustration as we engaged in some of these new processes, and I think you outlined why we did that very clearly, but maybe outline some of what's the end game, what are we trying to get to, and how are some of the steps that you've implemented that's helping us already?
One of the things we're trying to do is to get us on a budget cycle, to put budgets in place that are meaningful, that so that you know what you have to work with. In the past, some of the expenses and revenues didn't exactly match the budgets that people had to work with, which created some challenges. The problem is that given the magnitude of the cuts that we're dealing with, this has to be done in a very short period of time. But as part of the process going forward, I want to continue, first of all, the work that was done by my predecessor, Nancy Suttonfeld, to start putting a realistic, transparent process in place. We're going to have regular budget reviews. I can't say enough good things about all the people who did roll up their sleeves and dug in to a very, very difficult task. So all of you budget people, would you please stand up? Please.
Oh.
I know we have budget people. Please stand up.
Christine
yes,
Black,
Christine.
yeah.
All right. A very difficult effort. What makes it even more challenging is going into FY16. You might think that being the CFO is pretty cut and dried. 2 and 2 equals 4. Frequently, it's more art than science. We don't yet have any hard numbers. I don't have an appropriation from the state. We won't know exactly what our enrollment's going to be for a few more days, which makes it very difficult because we don't really know what we're going to have to work with. Going forward, however, we're going to put in a process where we have budget reviews, where we have come together and make the recommendations on an annual basis, that we build 5-year budgets so we can do planning well into the future, to remove some of what I call the seat of the pants management that's been taking place just because we have to make decisions on very short timelines with not a lot of information. So we're going to continue, and I, like I said, I've done before, I apologize for the grief and aggravation I've caused quite a few people by changing things a bit. But it's led to a lot of really good discussions. For instance, I'm scheduled to go meet with all the deans and sit down and learn more about the colleges, find ways we can work more closely together. But this is very much a collaborative partnership as we work together to find the best way to allocate what are ever more increasingly scarce resources. So the goal is transparency, collaboration, but at the same time put a realistic process in place so we can get out ahead of the budgets going forward, and which will enable us to make decisions out in the future. As I said before, it's one thing to make a decision 3 months out. It's a whole nother matter if you've got 3 years and you know that you have money in the budget 3 years from now to cover whatever it is that you want to do.
Let me, tell a story unless there's another question. No, let me tell the story first. The mayor invited me to speak at the State of the City speech a month or so ago, and Anne Marie spoke too. One of the things that he reported on was that we're now at a 10-year low in terms of crime in the community. And that's the outcome of a lot of hard work by the police department in the city as well as on campus and their collaboration together. So my thanks to them. And the reason I mention that and why it's top of mind is in our first week, you probably got a text that there'd been an alleged assault. Well, it turns out that that was a false assault, but it raised concerns around campus about what's the safety situation. So essentially, we didn't have an assault. And we have one of the a 10-year low, and we're among the safer campuses in the state. So sometimes that goes out there and it kind of feeds this concern we have when in fact we probably didn't have any crimes that first week that were reported. That's pretty good for a first week of a university startup. So, like the Northern Star had that article the other day, and I saw the headline, went, what? And then I read the article, and it's like, no, it wasn't a real assault. So, kind of pay attention to that and find out what the real reality is, because sometimes these things run around and we don't catch up to them. And once it's out the door, it's hard to bring it back in and get the reality set. So I just wanted to make clear on that, because that is a factor that affects perceptions of this community. And it's, in fact, a very safe community. And my thanks to the police departments and also the university and the community are working together to work on things like poverty reduction, which are core to crime in many cases. John?
John Senovich with the NIU Foundation, and when I first met Dr. Phillips, it was in the hallway of Altgeld Hall, and I said, I'm John Senovich, I'm the Director of Planned Giving. Nice to meet you. And he said, I'm Al Phillips, I'm the guy without any money. And so I wasn't sure if he was talking about personally without any money or the university. But your comments just now remind me, and what you said, Dr. Weldy, is that we're all in this together. And so this is sort of a plea from the foundation to keep us in mind when you're talking to folks in the community, alums and friends who have resources, who care about students, who want to help students. We need to raise, with the declining enrollment and the state budget situation, we have to just really up our efforts big time. So we have a very aggressive goal this year, and Catherine, I don't know if Catherine is here, but she's leading that charge and doing a great job. But we want to raise, last year we raised total about 15 million. This year we'd like to get it to 20. That's everything,
That's million, not $20.
20 million. Yes,
million. Okay,
correct.
good.
I wish it was billion, but we'll take million. And so that's not necessarily cash in the door, but that's where we're actually headed in that direction. So this is more of not a question, but just a reminder that we need everybody to do this, because there's only 10 of us in the division right now that are actually out with boots on the ground, out talking to people. So we need more people to step up and help us do our jobs well, because the more people that we can get to participate, the better it'll be, and the easier all of our jobs will be if we've got more resources to spend. So,
good point.
Yeah.
And are you going to pass the plate now?
Well, I could if you'd like me to, but no.
So John works on planned giving, and that means, like, where do you leave your estate? So if you want to leave your estate to us, John is the guy. Did you have a question?
Forgive me, I get really nervous.
Oh, don't be nervous.
You had mentioned that we will get paid for our work that we do here. So I was just wondering, how long is that going to last? Because I'm assuming that's part of the budget.
Yeah. So I wish we had an exact answer to that, and the legislature keeps asking that question. I think we're going to get through this academic year fine, okay? I can't imagine we aren't going to have a budget partway through this academic year, though. I just can't imagine a state the size of Illinois can run a state the size of Illinois without a budget. It's just kind of mind-boggling. And what they've done now is piecemeal the budget. So the K-12 budget was passed. Okay, so it's off the table. And there are other statutory things you have to spend money on, and so that's off and going. But now they've got to come back and figure out there is a structural deficit. We got to figure out more revenue and reductions and put those pieces together. no problem this semester. I think we'll get through the academic year, but I can't imagine us not having a budget before it. So I don't want to say there's no risk involved here, but I want to say that Al and his team and Lisa have done great managing. They're forecasting this, but we still don't know what our final enrollment fall is. We don't know what our spring enrollment's going to be, and we don't know what the legislature is ultimately going to come and do to us. But we think within those scenarios that we're going to be okay. That's a good question. I mean, everybody's on edge about that, and you want to be able to raise your families and pay your mortgages and all those things that we're all stressed about. So we are thinking of our faculty and staff because you fulfill the mission that allow us to have these transformational experiences for our students. And I know they're worried about things like MAP funding. 5,800 of our students get MAP funding, and the university has said we're going to cover that until we get the check from the state. We didn't think we could start this fall semester and say, well, we don't know if we're going to have MAP funding or not, but come anyway. I don't think you can say that to students. So actually, the presidents and chancellors met and discussed what our options were, and we all said we're going to have to cover it and wait for the legislature to come to terms with that. So you'll actually probably see some legislative movement on that. Mike, the Senate's passed it, the House is looking at it today on MAP funding. And they may pass it, but the governor has suggested he might veto that bill, even though he supports MAP funding. And the reason is I think he wants leverage for a whole budget solution, not a piecemeal solution. So if you see the governor veto a MAP bill, it's not that he doesn't care about students, it's that he's trying to get a whole budget put together. If you have opinions you want to share with the governor or legislature about the budget, I'll leave mid-sentence. I wouldn't dissuade you, whichever side of the aisle you're on and whatever your opinion is, they need to hear from higher education. Who had a question? Oh, he has another comment. Carry on.
One of the things we're doing is we're looking very closely at all the costs. For every dollar I can save that doesn't go out the door to purchase equipment or services is another dollar I have to go into payroll. So we are looking everywhere we possibly can. We're scrutinizing all the procurements, not to keep people from buying things, just to make sure that we're being judicious about what we really need and what we really don't. Because literally we're trading off purchases for payroll down the road. And the more we have in the bank, the better off we will be in terms of getting through the fiscal year once the state figures out what it's going to do.
Andy.
Good afternoon. Andy Small, Chemistry. First off, I appreciate everything, and I think all of us appreciate everything that you folks do. We're all Huskies, right? So we appreciate it. And I know that it's tough to talk about financial situations, and thank you for not laying me off. I appreciate that. But having said that, but the day's not done, right? So, but having said that, I think one of the elephants in the room is compensation. And we've all been very diligent and Huskies for a long time. And I think that part of us would be interested in hearing if there was money available in the next few years, or if things did lighten up or whatever, what is the compensation plan? Or are we playing it by ear, or how are we going to actually address? Obviously, there's some morale issues associated with those types of things. And if there was some plan about compensation or something like that, it might help us address some of those morale issues in some of our shared governance situations. Yeah. So, tough question, but I appreciate anything you can give to us on that.
I'm glad you asked it, Andy. Thanks for doing it. I've talked to thanks. I've talked to Al and Lisa about that, and Nancy beforehand, to see what we could do. Last year we closed a $15 or $20 million budget reduction without laying people off or furloughing, and we felt that that was the priority rather than a compensation increase. And this year I've asked Al to look at what are the contingencies, what are the parameters when we could give a compensation increase, and probably a graduated one with higher percentages at the bottom of the salary structure percentage-wise. So, but we got to get our fiscal house in order, and it's a little bit hard to do not having a state budget or no our enrollments right now. So it's a difficult playing field.
It's actually a priority. When I was in Springfield, I worked for a state agency. We went years without pay raises. I know what it's like. But we have to get our cost down below our revenue. This year, we're looking at possibly a $30 million reduction. And hopefully, if the state can get its act together and we have some idea on a long-term basis of what our level of funding will be, that'll make it much easier for us to adjust to that. It is very much a priority ahead of a lot of other things. But first of all, we have to make sure that we can accommodate the cuts that we're looking at, and we really don't know what those are going to be yet. It's very important to us. It's very important to you. It's definitely a priority, and we are constantly looking to find a way that we can carve out some of the budget so that we can do that. In the current environment, it may be a little bit till things settle out. It looks like hopefully with all the efforts of Danny and Eric to turn our enrollment around, that will help that. But it's something we plan to do as soon as we're fiscally able to do so.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Amanda Buncales. I'm a student here at Northern Illinois University since 2006. Finished 2 degrees here and now writing my proposal. I would like to know if Northern Illinois University and the city of DeKalb are doing some effort about bringing back the train here in DeKalb so that NIU can get more potential customers in Greater Chicago area.
Excellent question. And so I asked that same question 2 years ago when I came in, and the mayor may have more insights on this than I do, but what I was told was ultimately it's extraordinarily expensive to extend the railroad tracks from Elburn to here. It would be $17 million project to get the railroad tracks here, which would mean the local taxes, given our small tax base, would go up an unacceptable amount. So other plans have been discussed. Is there a way to get better bus service to the Elburn train station, for example, as a stopgap measure until ultimately the train could be brought out here? And so that kind of planning is underway. And do you want to say anything more about it, Mayor? You may want to hit the mic too so our friends online can hear. It was really handy to have you here today.
Thank you. County Board Chair Mark Petrosky, who's an employee at the university as well. Mark assembled a number of us mayors from the DeKalb County communities to talk about this issue and see if there is a coalition of momentum to move forward with either Amtrak or Metra being the source of transportation to our community. The conversation has begun. There is nothing firmly in place in terms of direction in that regard other than the ancillary transportation that could supply the current network to Elburn.
Okay. Is there a timeline, Mayor? This is a long-term project, isn't it?
Yes, it would be certainly long-term.
Okay, so we need to figure out the transit to Elburn in the interim.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good question. You know, and our international students also have troubles getting in and out of O'Hare. You know, how do you get a transportation here? So I know International Programs is working on that and working with community members as well. Jennifer?
Just to piggyback on what the mayor said, we've been doing 2 important projects to increase transportation for students. First,
so this is Jennifer Gross, who does our community relations.
I'm sorry, I didn't tell you who I was. Hi. So we've been working in really close partnership with the City of DeKalb, specifically to bring Greyhound. They are back on our campus. Student Affairs and all of the great team there have been working with us, as well as the staff in the Holmes Student Center. So Greyhound is here, and it's one additional amenity that provides daily service twice a day to Chicago, twice a day out from Chicago to DeKalb. So there's one additional amenity. There's also a federal grant that's in place, an application to increase the transportation hub through Transvac that would increase transportation back and forth from the DeKalb community to the Elburn train station. And there's increased partnerships between Husky Line and the local transportation community as well. So while we're looking at that big elephant in terms of, $15, $20, $30 million for rail service, we are also looking at what are efficient and affordable ways we can provide transportation immediately in those areas. So,
yeah, good question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Who else?
I'd like to raise an issue that was discussed last year. We talked a bit about diversity, pretty good discussion about diversity, and we've had a lot of discussion about diversity this spring, I think, on campus, at least in student newspapers and the like. And I saw a figure last night of one of the community organizations who brought from O'Hare 140 new international students. And I'm just wondering what you can tell us about your connections now relative to international students in particular. What are in our plans in terms of reaching out to them?
Great question. I'll start. Maybe Lisa wants to add some. I'll start. Okay. So in terms of international recruitment, there are different strategies you can use to recruit students, and then I can talk about retention, doing the right things to help people be successful here at the university and in the community. In terms of recruitment, you can cast a broad net and try and recruit all over the world. Or you could recruit more narrowly and pick a few countries. Or you could even be more focused and say, why don't we form pipeline relationships with specific institutions so that we have a long-standing relationship and a predictable relationship. For example, if you had a 2+2 relationship, like we do with community colleges in America, could we have 2+2 relationships with international universities? So a student could go 2 years in their home country and then come here, or 3+1, or a 4+ a graduate degree. So we've been trying to do a little of both, but finding that the pipeline relationship into specific institutions may hold the most merit for us. So I see Chris McCord sitting here in the middle section, Dean of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Chris worked aggressively the last almost 2 years now with Nankai University to set up a joint college to offer political science and economics degrees between Nankai University in China and us. And Nankai's ranked 10th or 11th in China. It's a very good school, very good school. And we're pleased to form that partnership. The Board of Trustees approved that relationship a couple months ago. And we're awaiting final approval from our own Higher Learning Commission as well as the equivalent in China. We think that program with these excellent students are going to, 250, 275 students per year? So the freshman class would be 250 or 75 students, sophomores same. So over 1,000 students across those cohorts. First 2 years in China, second 2 years here, all taught in English. So that would be over 500 potential students. And if you know about China, you know that students are placed based on their entrance exams, kind of like their ACT. And so these are the top 1-2% kind of students in China that are going to this school. So we think those kinds of students, being excellent students, working with our curriculum taught in English in China and here, is going to create a really powerful and dynamic kind of program. And we think that's just going to enrich our faculty, staff, our research, and our community. But we're going to have to forward think about now the integration part into our community. How do we learn from them and they from us, and how do we create a welcoming and enriching environment? So we've got all that work that we're doing now to try and really work hard on that. So I think those are important strategies. We are a global economy, and we are going to be a richer place with that increased diversity, with more international voices looking at the world differently than us, so we can learn from them and they from us. So I'm excited about the role that international can have going forward. Lisa, anything to add to that?
I'll add one sort of tactical footnote, and that is that Dean Brad Bond is in the process of issuing invitations for a campus-wide task force that will be looking at all aspects of our international operations to make sure that we have the best structures and understanding of opportunities for recruiting, for training, for serving international faculty and students. And that task force will contain people who have worked really hard both in the community and on our campus for more than a decade in Center for Southeast Asian Studies and some of the global programs in business, in some of the colleges that attract large populations of international students just because they have excellent programs that are of interest. And the work of that group will inform a search for a new senior international official, but we probably won't launch that until we really have an idea of what we want the office to do and what type of skill set we want in the next person who oversees our international operations full time. And I just want to also just really thank you for linking our international or global student population to the issue of diversity. I think sometimes when we think about how important diversity is to our campus and to the intellectual vitality of our campus and our community, we think first of race and ethnicity. We don't think about international students, and we think second about class and faith and sexual orientation and gender preference and all the things that actually make a campus diverse and a really wonderful place, not just to exchange ideas, but also to train students for success in a global society and for culturally competent communication. So thank you.
Do you want to come down and do it? Or do you, I'll repeat it.
Okay. I just want to add to the comment about reports for international students. One resource the hotel has found that's been just terrific, and that is the ELS on campus. Did you hear that?
Yep. So she said a great resource is ELS, which is the group that does language training on campus for us. And we contract with them. They do a marvelous job. And they also have, back to your question, they have a global recruiting function. And we're exploring, could we work through them to be kind of our agents around the world doing some global recruiting for us. They seem interested in working with us on that. So that's nice to have a professional organization like that that we could maybe potentially work with, and we have a great relationship with them. So, are we supposed to be done at 3, or
I think we should wrap it up.
Okay.
Yep.
I see people getting anxious and getting out of here. So, my thanks to the panel, and again, my thanks to all of you for getting us off on that right foot. Thanks for treating our students well, and the moms and dads, and thanks for treating each other well. I see that spirit of you working with each other. That's critically important for us as we move forward to build that community on campus and with our surrounding communities. Let's have a great year. And I see Sean Frazier over here. We've got a great start to our athletic season. The women are, what, 3-1 in volleyball? Is that right? 3-1. And what's going on Saturday? We have a contest this weekend, Saturday. Go to the football game. We'll see you out there. Go Huskies.